things that they require of you. All crew and cast has to be tested for COVID at the expense of the production. So like the production has to pay for everybody's COVID test.
This is episode 62 of the Arts Academy podcast, How to Film During COVID, hosted by Victor Varnado and Roxxy Haze.
Right now, let's talk about filming, okay? So whether or not, if you're a filmmaker or you're going to make sketches or YouTube videos or whatever, right now, you got to think about what happens during COVID, like how your filming is going to come across. Have you done much filming during COVID, Roxxy Haze?
I actually just did. I did something.
Okay, so what did they do for you?
So everybody had to get COVID tested, and then also like they had a medic on staff that was taking temperatures when you got there.
How did the COVID tests happen?
We had to take them and then show them that we took it.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And then we had to they weren't balling like how you be doing. And then they had a medic there that was testing everybody. Like not testing, but doing the temperature thingy.
What about the audience? Was there an audience?
We were just all filming together, and then like it wasn't supposed to, like nobody else was supposed to come on set and all that kind of stuff. Like it's just the people, just the talent was there. So
everybody on set had to produce their COVID tests, and then on top of like. What were the COVID tests had to be presented within a certain time frame?
Oh, before you got there.
I mean, how old could the tests be?
Oh, like, did they give us? I don't think. Was it like a week or so? Like, I know it couldn't be super old. Like, it had to be super recent. Like, within. Did they give us a time frame? Yeah, they had to. It had to be within like a week or so. Within like a week before, and then they tested. They did the thing. Every day. Like
they take your temperature every day. And then to check and see if you have symptoms. And then so also while you're on set, did everybody wear masks?
We were wearing them, but not the whole time. Because we were also like eating and stuff like that too.
Oh, okay. So, all right. So, I mean, it sounds like, now I got to be honest, that's pretty lax even for a low budget thing. I'm glad you're still alive, but
I'll edit this out.
But I mean, no, that's fine. I mean, because it's just the way a lot of people are doing stuff like varies all around the United States. For instance, like on a low budget, I have a lot of students. I'm teaching a class on filmmaking at Rider University, and then I can't control how the students act when they go out and film with COVID, but I've been doing stuff like I've been giving them bonuses on their grade if they show me their COVID tests, and if they show me their COVID tests and it's within like, but the test has to be within 3 days of when they shoot.
Gotcha.
So because usually it takes if you catch COVID, it takes within 3 days for you to be shedding and then like contagious, and so if you test usually that means you've got like 72 hours at least, even if you catch COVID immediately, that you won't be contagious.
Gotcha.
At least that's the basic idea. And so for people who had no budget, basically what I told them was they should test within 3 days and tell everybody to maintain quarantine whenever they were about to shoot. And then when they were shooting, departments keep their own things. Okay, so like nobody touches the camera except for the cameraman, period. Because that way everybody stays with their own thing, and the cameraman always stays with masks covered. The only people who ever have their faces uncovered are talent, if they have to have their face uncovered while they're on camera. Other than that, everybody's face is covered. Then when people have faces uncovered, they generally are socially distanced. Okay, so then they would always be like at least 6 feet apart, usually outside. Inside, people's faces are covered almost the entire time. This is just like what I told people to adhere to make sure that they were just as safe as they possibly can be. Basically, the whole idea is just like act like you're on alert. like as much as possible when you're doing your shooting during COVID, when you've got a low budget, because a lot of states, and I think it's every state, has free testing stations.
Yeah.
Like for COVID, like where you can get tested for free. In New York, it's like you can get tested like a certain number of times per month for free, but then after that, it's not free. But in other states, I think it's like you can have as many COVID tests as you want. How is it in Texas?
Man, Texas is just so lax with a lot of stuff with COVID. But yeah, they have a lot of free COVID spots you can go get tested at. I don't think it's a certain number, and if it is, I've just been running that number up because I've just been going every few weeks.
This if it's free, there's no problem. I like that the tests have become less severe, because before they were like shoving the thing way up your nose, but now they don't have to do it as much anymore, which is great because they figured out what they were doing. Everybody was excited at the beginning.
Man, I was like, and then I was just super quarantined at that point, so I didn't even really need it because I was just in the house. But I'm like, that's what y'all are doing to my brain.
Right, exactly. Just shoving the thing as far as they can. And then on top of that, when we shot Bring Back Laughs, and that was a shot with SAG, so it was with the union, so we'd had to adhere with union rules. And I'll tell you what the union rules are, because they are very specific. First of all, I don't know who's calling me. There's somebody calling me.
Website. I want to just look it up so I can post it so everybody can see.
Post what?
The SAG rules.
It may be on their website. I'm not sure, because here's the first thing that happens is you have to register with SAG as a production, and then they assign someone to handle your production through the Screen Actors Guild. Then you have to once they assign somebody to handle your production, then you have to have a meeting. During the meeting, you have to tell them all the details of your production and how things are going to be run, where the food is going to be, where the cast is going to be, how the cast will be separated. In our case, we had an audience, so we had to tell them like exactly how the cast is going to be separated from the audience, and just tell them the entire plans. Things that they require of you. All crew and cast has to be tested for COVID at the expense of the production. So like the production has to pay for everybody's COVID test. That should always be offered. If they're not able to take a COVID test with the production, and basically the production has to pay for a doctor to come and be there on set to test everybody before the shooting begins. So, and if the cast is not available on that day that you're having those COVID tests done, then they have to produce a test themselves that also the production pays for. So they have to produce a test themselves that shows that they've been COVID tested.
I see. Then, so there's more. Okay, keep going. Sorry.
So then, if everybody's test comes back negative, then the production can continue. If somebody's test comes back positive, if that person was in contact with other people in the cast before, then basically your production is shut down.
Dang.
Yeah, it's a mess. So we had to like make sure people got tested away from everybody else, and then we had to see what the deal was, and then we had to get all our tests back, and we got all our tests back negative, which is great. Okay. Then, because we were a show where there were performers and there was an audience, the performers and the audience were kept separate. Okay, performers and the audience were always kept separate. The audience is screened, so there's a difference between COVID screening and COVID testing. COVID screening is what the doctor was doing with the temperature thing. And where they basically ask you, have you been out being freaky, getting COVID? And then you go like, no, I haven't. And then they take your temperature. And so that's COVID screening. And then COVID testing is where they do the actual test. And so they have to separate people who are screened and tested, and all the people who are tested have to stay away from the people who are screening. In actuality, in some cases, the crowds did mix because, the cameramen are posted up in the audience, but then the cameramen have to keep all audience is kept away from all the cameraman's equipment. The cameramen have to always be sanitizing, and there also has to be sanitization stations all throughout the set. And the camera people, people are told to stay away from the camera people. Camera people are always wearing masks 100% of the time. You can't go through the audience unless you're wearing a mask. The audience is told to wear a mask unless they're eating or drinking, and they must be sitting. And if they are standing at all, they have to have a mask on or they'll be asked to leave. So it's like the Screen Actors Guild really makes sure that everything, they want everybody to be safe, because the union is there to protect talent, and so they have to make sure that everybody's 100% safe. And so
that's a lot,
right?
That's good though. I have a question. Maybe you don't know. So the production, you already know, the production I was supposed to do, I ended up not being able to do it because they said I had to quarantine for 2 weeks. Like if you're coming out of state, you have to quarantine for 2 weeks. And then the same thing happened with one of my other friends. Is that becoming a thing now for out of town?
Well, I mean, there's a couple of different things. Like when we were doing our show, if anybody was coming out of town, there were a certain number of states, different states, that they had to quarantine from if they traveled from a certain state. Okay. But that was previously when we weren't on the upswing in COVID like we are now. So because we're on the upswing now, I bet it's different where you have to quarantine from every state. If you travel, then most productions will probably want you to quarantine because COVID is on the upswing. So, I mean, that's just the way it is now. But previously, it was only certain states that were hot spots that people had to quarantine from if they traveled. But now I think it's just everywhere.
Yeah. And Texas, like I said, Texas is super high. So, yeah, that makes sense that they'd be like, nah, wait 2 weeks. So that makes sense. Do you think that, well, I mean, we don't know because COVID is so long. Do you think that everybody's going to kind of start adapting what SAG is doing as far as having rules like that on production sets?
Absolutely. I mean, I think that SAG is, SAG, these rules were for us and they were low budget, but they're the minimum because I think other productions are going to have bigger and bigger, more and more rules and more hurdles to jump through. Because if you're going to talk about a company like Disney, okay, so Disney has liability that they don't want to be liable for anybody getting COVID. So I bet their testing procedures are way more stringent, I'm sure. And so I think the more money the production has, or the production company has, I think the bigger the testing is going to be. Just the more, how much, just the more thorough all the testing is going to be. I'm sure of it.
That makes sense.
Yeah, it makes total sense. So it looks like we only have maybe one person watching, but that's not a problem because we are going to continue doing what we do. I'm actually going to share this because we're about to switch to how to write roast jokes. So I'm going to share that. You can cut this part out, but I'm going to share this online because we're about to talk about how to write roast jokes. And so this might be fun for people learn how to write roast jokes. Okay, I just shared it. All right, so, but if you have any questions about filming, any more questions about filming, now's the time to ask. But let me just go over again. And by asking, I mean go into the comments and just hit us up with comments and we'll talk to you about filming. But right now, I'm just going to go over what we talked about so far. Okay, so we talked about filming with low budget. Filming on low budget, the thing to do is if you want to go out and film now during COVID, and if you have to, or if you want to film with a very small crew, and you can film, it's still fine. If you're filming with few enough people so that's not an issue. Then what you do is you make sure everybody gets a COVID test within 72 hours of when you plan on filming. But once they get that COVID test, then they have to maintain strict quarantine. Then when you're on set, departments departments stay with departments. Camera people are the only people to touch the camera. Sound people are the only people to touch the sound equipment. If someone has a mic on them, that mic is theirs for the entire production, the entire day. It's about basically making sure that everyone stays compartmentalized. Then only the talent will have their masks off if necessary. But other than that, everybody has their mask on at all times except for lunch when they are eating. And when they're eating, everybody social distance when you're eating. When you're eating, when you're drinking, that's the best way to stay safe if you have no budget and you're shooting during COVID. It's not a guarantee that you're going to stay safe. In fact, I would suggest that you, if you can, get someone who has taken a COVID compliance class to be on your set, but that does cost money. That's my suggestion to you. Don't come to me and say, hey, we tried to follow your rules. We caught COVID. It's your fault. No, it's not. Don't do anything. Don't do anything is what I'm saying. But I'm saying that these are the best practices for keeping safe. If you're doing a large production, you don't have to actually worry about what you need to do as much because, well, you do have to worry about following along, but someone will tell you. If you're doing a large production, like you're doing a SAG production, SAG, an officer from SAG or a producer from SAG or an appointee from SAG will tell you this is what you have to do. And if you don't do that, your production will not go forward. All right. So that's everything we think you need to know about shooting during COVID, low budget or high budget. I'm Dean Victor Varnado. This is Deputy Headmistress Roxxy Haze. Please check us out at Alt Arts Academy on all social media and artsacademypodcast.com. All right. And if you want us to do an episode about anything that you have a question about, just hit us up on social media or join our Facebook group. We will tell you everything that you need to know. And also every 2 weeks, we have a free workshop. Our next workshop will be, what's the date on our next workshop?
Hold on, let me see. Whatever next Saturday. Next Saturday is the 28th.
Oh, no. Oh, so when this airs, next Saturday will be the 28th.
Yeah.
Right. Got it. When this airs, next Saturday will be the 28th. So on the 28th will be our next workshop. It is, we don't know what it'll be yet, but previous workshops have been things like how to do your social media, how to make a film for no money, how to write essays. There's been lots of great stuff. All right. So we will see you then.